Ready.
Yeah, let's get into it. Game 1 draft will be underway. Here we go. T1 on the blue side, as we mentioned before, they won the coin toss. They chose blue, as you would expect. Gen G will be on the red side, and let's see what the bans are going to be. Gentlemen, this was a big point, and Wolf, you've said it many times, but Poppy will be the first ban.
Yeah, Carrier going to lose his Nautilus as well right off the board, right off the bat here. These are two picks we know these players have been so reliant on this season. No Lucian for Ruler, and Kalista might go into that third spot, but Gumayusi himself has been so prominently a strong player of it. Gen G take that away from him before we even get to have the discussion.
The Poppy, I think, provides a really big problem for T1 because picking it yourself into the Morgana feels like a risk, and you definitely can't give it to Peanut. So, like that ban a lot, as the Yuumi gonna get taken away, and everyone cheers. There's 1 point we can all agree on. Zeri, that's annoying, but Zeri and Yuumi is a combination that is truly fearsome. Gonna remain up, but other picks, Ahri, still up.
Yeah,
Fear, still up. Sivir, Zeri, they're all there.
Yeah, Sivir going to this first slot means you have to give Chovy the Ahri, and Vi is open as well, going into this red side for Gen G. So yeah, you get really strong bottom side control with the Sivir. They go and lock ahead the Zeri right away, but that Ahri pick really looms as a strong one, and they'll actually prioritize the Azir over it despite the Vi being open.
I think this is very interesting. The Zeri actually going to be picked without a Yuumi into a Sivir. This is something that Ruler actually said himself means that Zeri doesn't necessarily do as well in the lane. We've seen it happen so many times, but the Azir is extraordinarily important. Sivir Azir, I think, has been an insane combination for so many teams, but Faker, he can pick the Ahri into it and will do so straight away.
Can't quite give up a combination. Lulu, I think, also has kind of shut up in priority if Gen G wants to go with the Enchanter out. Generally has been a combination, not quite as good as the Yuumi, but still provide a ton of extra survivability and a little bit more pressure in terms of laning as well. As the Wukong pick up, no surprise there, and now Gen G have a choice. Do you pick up the Lulu, augment your bot lane, or do you pick up a Trundle for Peanut? That has been the go-to pick, gonna be the Lulu.
Yeah, I think the Trundle definitely is going to get removed now by T1. And T1 have a draft of S-tier picks, the Sivir, the Ahri, the Wukong. They all work very well together, even though we've seen Vi Ahri as a duo be a menace. When you already have that powerhouse in the bottom side for lane control with the Sivir, you're not as reliant on that dive style. And since you can remove the Trundle here, the Wukong doesn't feel like a liability. You know that you can either get rid of the Trundle or the Lulu. So 1 power point here gained from T1. And T1 definitely has the tier list advantage right now. And it's been so surprising to see the Azir prioritized here for Chovy instead.
The Morgana will be banned away from Peanut, of course, has been a pick that's actually risen to quite a lot of popularity. It's not just Peanut that's been playing it, although he did debut it this season here in the LCK. Still will be taken away. We expect that the Trundle will come out afterwards. The Camille has been taken away from Zeus as well. Certainly one of his better, more aggressive choices towards the top side.
Not only is Zeus good on the pick, as he is on most picks, has been playing exceptionally well, but what I love about the Camille ban is that the Vi obviously not going to get picked up as the Wukong is already there, and Camille is one of the very few champions that can provide you with a 100% reliable way to lock down Zeri in late game. With Gen G playing so heavily towards that bot side, seems like a no-brainer here. You pick up a jungler for Peanut, and then you can R5 a counter pick for Doran. Tries to make this top side as comfortable as possible, because as much as I think Zeus has the edge, if Doran gets a counter pick, sure, he's not as good as Zeus, but he's going to be just fine.
You know what else is open here is Renata, and that has been something that hasn't really been an option teams are allowed to have this deep in the draft. So you ban away the Karma, Renata's still open here. And Lulu's already locked in here for Gen G. You have a little bit more wave clear with that. You can, of course, stop some of the engages, but it's hard to lock down a Zeri, and I'm really curious with no Nautilus here, with the pick, obviously, they prepared for Ruler here, the Zeri. They gave the Sivir. What is Keria going to play in this draft? Ornn gets locked in first. Feels like an Aatrox angle here potentially for Doran. But what's that support? Because this is the toughest call, I think, here for T1 in this draft, controlling the wave. And it will be the Amumu with Sivir, not a common duo here. Still strong for lane engage. And there's the Aatrox. We all knew it was coming when we saw the Ornn. It's Doran's meta. It's 12-14, and he's going to get this. Peanut gets the Sejuani. They have so much engage, but also consistent damage here in the late game. Azir, Zeri, you have the Lulu here to help protect. And T1, going to be more pick-based here in this draft.
Looking at T1, you know, the late game teamfight power that you have between the front to back engages that you can find with a Mumu and with Ornn, and then the Sivir damage on top of it in the late game. Yeah, there's a Zeri on the enemy team, but you still have more than enough power. But looking at the mid game, if Owner and Faker can't find picks going into fights and they can get onto the enemy backline, I think it'll be very tough. Doran in the early to mid game going to be an absolute menace as well, especially when paired with Sejuani.
Exactly right. Coaches are going to bow to one another, fighting for this trophy in the middle of the room. Gen G, decent drafting there on the red side. I like the flexibility of the Sejuani as well. Of course, it has moved to a lot more of a jungle pick, especially in other regions. But here in the LCK, especially in the hands of Doran, he does still like to play it towards the top side as one of his tanks of choice. But glad to see on more of that tempo pick in the Aatrox.
And, you know, we've talked so much about how Zeri has been reliant on Yuumi to find success in our playoffs. Ruler now gets to prove that he could do it with Lulu against one of the best bot duos in the world historically. They're not, you know, in their current form at the end of the season, weren't on many people's top 3. But this is going to be such an exciting matchup where Ruler can prove himself on this Zeri potentially in the late game if he could survive long enough to get there.
Yep, and of course Gumayusi was the one that debuted the reworked Sivir as well into Zeri on the bottom side of the map. When he did so, it was with the Yuumi. This time around, I actually feel like without Yuumi in the picture, Sivir is just a better champion in a lot of ways as you even move towards that late game where we see so many of these Zeri angles. It's so much more difficult to pull off when it's against the Sivir. But here we are into game number 1 of the LCK 2022 Summer Finals. And Kunlun explodes as the T1 fan chant rings out. But Gen G fans certainly showing up in force as well. And let's see who's going to be able to take the game 1 win. Gumayusi with the best skin as we start this one off. But you can see no funny business. T1 just looking for some potential angles there towards the bottom side. But otherwise, all is calm on Summoner's Rift.
Top side start here for Peanut. Looks like potentially, well, we'll see if he sticks around. Take that pathing bottom here against the Sivir Amumu, which is going to be wave clear control. Notice the cull start here for Ruler. He knows what kind of laning phase he's gotten himself into. He takes cleanse here, Lahen's exhaust as well. You just want to be able to survive those longer team fights with Lulu's help. And in the laning phase, you just want to make sure you don't die, don't lose too much control. Because T1 have so much prio with these lanes that in general, with this just Sivir alone, you can do things like this, engage non-stop. And you will be able to get to the objective first. What happens there is all up to execution, but I love T1's setup here in draft for the early game.
For the uninitiated Amumu, with his kit, going to be able to reduce a lot of the damage that the Zeri is able to do. And of course, the lockdown that he's able to provide relatively unconditionally if he can get into the enemy backline with Curse of the Sad Mummy. Not as good as a Camille or a Vi would have been, but another direction that T1 has gone into as Peanut has been one of our more creative junglers, has been very vocal about looking to the LPL for different pathings, trying to catch people off guard, trying to find timings that other people might not quite be ready for. Not the best Sejuani game. We've seen it combine a lot with things like the Silas, of course, when it was played top, also with the Viego, and really only have Doran to kind of augment you in this given situation. But as long as you can find some CC, it can still be very strong.
Yeah, and I think there was a really interesting thing that you brought up, Wolf, a little bit earlier on about this mid lane and where the priority is actually going to lie. Because we've seen in the Azir-Ahri matchup, it can go either way. Right now, we're seeing that Chovy has some control of the lane, but a lot of it is going to come down to whether Faker can find some of those angles, find some of those charms, and really get this lane working out in T1's favor.
And realistically, looking at the top half of the map, Gen G should be king in terms of getting the shove. As soon as Doran gets a couple of levels in his Darkened Blade, Zeus' time is going to be a lot harder. Should not be under any threat, but post-early levels, definitely in a little bit of a weaker situation. And even though a lot of our Azirs have gone for laning runes, we've seen Comet, we've seen Airy, we've seen Scorch make a comeback as a loner.
So cute. but
Chovy was ready.
Pretty good.
Now, what's so interesting to me about how this bottom side matchup has gone is even with the cull start here for Ruler, they're laning it out so incredibly well, picks up 25 stacks of it, and it has been bottom side control for the most part here for Ruler and Lahens. Keria, we saw that early engage with the Amumu, but otherwise didn't find any trades. And historically speaking, this has been Sivir controlled, this matchup. But the laning phase is going so well here for Ruler and Lahens. So thus far, that same control isn't there at the moment.
And is this to do with having the Amumu on the side of the Sivir this time around? Of course, you don't have as much of that lane presence, so maybe that's a sacrifice that T1 had to make.
Yeah, you're playing double ranged or you're playing into double range. Rather, Lulu is extremely oppressive. Not quite as annoying as Renata, but between Glitterlands and Polymorph, you're still not feeling super great about it. Peanut is at least able to pick up the back half of those Krugs. But in addition to that, Sivir's wave clear doesn't really get online until you get to Noon Quiver, and that's when you start to be able to at least shove in the waves. But early levels can always be a little bit tricky, even with Keria going in there early on. Post 6, I do think that becomes a lot better, as Peanut just making sure that Zeus is going to have to keep playing respectful. And on top side, it's somewhat similar for Doran. It's not until you get first back in and a couple of levels in your queue that you really start to be able to shove in. And for Gen G in the mid game, I'm going to be looking at how do they find angles, because a straight up front to back where Doran doesn't get backline access, even with how many late game spikes and how much item dependency is on T1, will always be tough, just because Wukong combined with Amumu, combined with Ornn, is kind of a menace to play.
Yeah, there's so many ways to stop Doran from having that big spike in the mid game here in terms of the CC setup. You can be charmed early too, and for the side of Gen G, you know, you have the non-committal CC from the Sejuani ultimate, but it can be spell shielded by Gumayusi, right? There's a lot of mobility, there's a lot of frontline for the Sivir. So how do you lock down and kill the Sivir? Getting through all the frontline, the charm, the Ornn Horn, and winning that longer fight for Chovy, who's going to be the second half of the damage here with the Zeri in the later game, is going to be a difficult challenge to navigate. But he's one of the best players in the world on Azir, and I think he's up to the task.
Yeah, I think that so much of it is going to come down to Chovy, actually, and I think this could be worrying to some of our Gen G fans, because I think that Chovy had probably the more quiet of the performances in their playoffs match already against Live Sandbox. And yes, it was a 3-1, right? It was a very decisive win, but I think that Gen G didn't win through Chovy so much in that series, but here in this game, on his Azir, I think he's going to be incredibly pivotal as we get later and later into it, to make sure that these Emperor's Divides get rid of so much of the close range CC.
And if you don't group up and you don't get immediately picked up, Faker doesn't find an early reset, that's where I think that the Gen G comp is a lot stronger. Have a really early spike with an Aatrox Sejuani, can actually duel very well, especially if you can isolate a target. So as long as you don't walk into multi-man wombo combos as Gen G, which they generally have, and the team fighting has been very, very good. I think the early objective fight should go their way, and an early Mountain Drake in a situation where you're going to be looking for a lot of mid-game fights can have incredible value. And even if all of that fails, you always have the Ruler contingency plan, because Zeri Azir is a very disgusting combination, because if you ever hit anyone with an Azir ult, you can be sure that a Extendo Beam is to follow, and that ability is definitely quite strong.
Yeah, both of these teams have some form of, between the Boomerang and the Extendo Beam, neutral poke, and it will often, I think, come down to whether Ruler can hit that poke more consistently. I think he has a lot more opportunities to do it than Gumayusi will when we get to later parts of the game on even footing. And the first team fight here over this first Herald, which it looks like is going to be the first contention point, is going to be based around whether Zeus and Keria can have good engage if Keria, of course, comes there. And Owner's Cyclone can also be super massive in a team fight like this. Gen G don't have the same sort of level 6 spikes here across the board, even with the Azir ult, which is one of the best in the game. Against what T1 are running here, they're going to have a numbers advantage or a setup advantage, or T1 should have the edge here going into that first fight.
Yep, I really like Supermassive Cyclone as well. One of the lesser-known Muse albums, I'm pretty sure. As Doran up against AS here does have a little bit of attention as Owner is moving up. But as you can see, more of a defensive gank position for Owner, wanting to make sure that if there is any attention, that he will be able to mitigate it. But already Owner falling behind just a little bit, with Peanut getting into his jungle, stealing away his blue buff. Still, T1 with some control of this Herald. We'll see what they're going to be able to get done here as Lehen's moving his way down. 2v2 still on that bottom side as Doran gets full information of what's going on. And Gen G is going to shake the hands of T1 and say that they'll take away a dragon.
And that's a perfectly fine trait to take. Dragons, in my opinion, are a lot stronger than Rift Herald is right now. The immediate gold that you're able to get from the Rift Herald not always quite working out. And as Gen G, it also gives you the opportunity to maybe reach your one-item spikes, where Doran is actually sitting on a Gore Drinker, has level 9 available, actually has a bit more power in a Darkened Blade. You can get maybe a first item for Chovy, for Ruler, and that will give you a lot more explosiveness when it comes to these early fights. So going to be a full handshake.
I think that if Faker had more control in mid lane, you know, if this matchup was going a little bit more Faker favored, which, you know, historically, when we talk about this, it goes both ways in the LCK, but it's Chovy, right? He usually wins these out in this matchup. If he had a little bit more control, maybe T1 could have actually prevented the handshake and tried to force, you know, 2 takes. But as a result, I think Gen G get everything they want here. They know that there's a high risk of, if they fought on Herald there, they give a huge gold lead to T1 and lose Herald and then won't get the Dragon. So just trading like this, I think, is absolutely the best call for them right now, because their comp is going to naturally scale very well, isn't as reliant on picks. And yes, the comp of T1 does scale very well with the Sivir, but I think they have a double threat here. And the mid-game fights they're looking to take with this Aatrox are going to be so much more empowered by that permanent buff of the Drake than the temporary gold you were talking about.
And do we think it's going to be a Cloud Soul, gentlemen? This is the time where we take bets. You have Hextech, Cloud, or Mountain as your options.
So not in game 1.
Or Infernal as your options, not Mountain. That one has already been taken.
I'll follow you, Atlas.
You reckon it's going to be Cloud as well? Excellent. Absolutely fantastic. Peanut going to be moving into the river here as owner and carrier going to vacate the area. T1 not looking for any fights right now, as you can see. And, of course, not a lot to fight over.
Gotta save those clouds for later on in the series, you know.
you gotta keep them ready, yeah, for the high-stake moments. Best soul in the game, according to Atlas specifically.
You know, and my favorite NALCS team, the Flagless, of course, they used Cloud Soul to win a series. They were absolutely amazing with the Cloud Soul being the MVP. So definitely good stuff. Charm connects here on Chovy. Nice bit of damage.
Saved her with that one. I'm not gonna go.
Did you like how I just tried to cut you off?
Yeah.
Like,
no, it's a great choice.
No counterpoint.
Great choice. No, I wouldn't dare. I won't bring it up. A lot of this very slow pace is also explainable by, I can see both teams feeling like they have a scaling advantage here. And it's actually a very interesting conversation, because my opinion will go towards T1. I think if Gen G get the time, they will always win out in late game team fights. And if Ruler goes unchecked, which he has been generally. But when you look at the front to back of T1, like, no matter what the game state is, you can always win a fight with that. So I think both teams are very happy in the first game of a best of 5s, as high stakes as this, to just sit back and trade.
Yeah, and that's been exactly what T1 have done in game 1s of best of 5s almost their entire time. But you can see Gen G already starting things off here. Zeus does find the Ornhorn. A fair bit of work being done here as Doran was trying to hold on to the aggro as much as he could, and Zeus will survive.
Yeah, only a plate goes down, and they do get the flash here, of course, out of Zeus as well, but he handled it so perfectly there and does survive with his life. Will find himself still 20 CS down, but could have been much worse there.
Really nicely done there by Zeus, able to stay alive, absorbing pressure, the way that we've seen him do so many times. Downside for T1, there isn't really a cross-map play available, and it does take away from some of the impact you can have in the early fights. The flash, or call it the Forge God, has been very, very strong. But not giving up a kill there, because that would have, without a shadow of a doubt, led to a lot more going down. And with this CC chain that you get here,
so well played.
Yeah, really well done. Like, gets the knock-up. Doran tries to tank for as long as possible, but with Peanut going for opening up with the ult to try and deny a Bellows breath value also means that you don't get the second permafrost proc, which means actually taking him down gets quite hard.
Yeah, if they had timed the CC a little bit better, they could have stopped the activation, but he handled it so perfectly there after the flash, and does end up surviving. But I think Gen G made this call the second the Herald is dealt with mid. They're like, well, there's no cross map for you now. We're going to instantly pull the trigger topside where we have a lot of control. Doran has been playing this matchup so well. He's led to, the advantages he has led to a faster Gore Drinker. He has his Mythic first. Knows that Zeus, of course, lost, or he's going to lose his flash now, so he can push his advantage further.
Ooh, the flash charm's fantastic. Curse of the Sad Mommy comes through, and Chovy will go down for first blood, and Faker picks it up.
There you go. There's some action for you. That's a successful kill in the mid lane. And it's going to be 2 Dark Seal stacks going into his pocket as well. And that is going to be a big commitment here to Turret as well. They have Demolish.
Yeah, Faker taking Demolish on the Ahri here, which is very cute. Ruler is going to skate over the wall, so not going to be taking the turret this time around, but that is four plates already.
Really big moment there for T1. Not just in terms of what it gets them in gold, because gold's still even. But most importantly, getting a big kill in a game like that, getting first blood, I think puts you off on a great foot. What it means for the game, though, is that with the turret still standing, and Faker not having a flash and an ultimate and no Cyclone being available either, is the opportunity now for Gen G to pick themselves up a second Drake, as that could not have been intended, unfortunately, for Lehens.
Want to make sure that you get as many angles when he's checking his makeup and things like that. Lehens just out as many
driving the bus.
We have seen some weird visual bugs, like rarely, but I mean the observer's highlighting it there means he probably did actually buy that twice. But rushing to the Drake, and the point still stands we were making before that was pointed out, is they do take it. T1 trying to make cross map topside.
Yeah, finds the bandage toss. Carrier seems to be everywhere right now, but Umbral Dash is pretty powerful, and there is the Infernal Soul for game number 1. It is a spicy one here. And T1 looking for another dive. A beautiful charm will connect, but the Gore Drinker is doing so much work here for Doran. And he says everything you can do, I can do not quite as well, as he does eventually fall down. T1 secure the top dive.
Very well played there to make a cross map, but it's not as significant as getting that second Drake advantage that Gen G has. It buys them so much longevity in this game, and it's Infernal Souls, so they're closer to that objective as well. And this is actually pretty massive in terms of what it's going to mean when we head into those later objective fights, especially as Doran is getting to the mid-game here on this Aatrox. Getting the 2 as early as they did is way more significant. At least T1 gets something back, but Chovy also pushing down the Ornn here, going to grab a whole turret.
Really nicely done there by Faker as well. Second time he's been able to find a roam as the TP is going to save the topside turret. Heal, making sure Owner can actually stay in that fight a little bit longer. Gonna trade. First turret blood, yes, goes over to Gen G as Faker almost dies, but when it comes to map control, getting that mid lane turret is way more valuable. Also means that the overall trade is still good for T1, but with 2 Drakes already going over to Gen G, all they need to do is win like one of the next 2 free Drake fights, and they're on Infernal Soul points, and with a Zeri, you'll take that.
Yeah, we're going all the way back to this pick where the flash charm comes through. The follow-up is there. Keria and Owner have the ability to chain CC Chovy to death. And the flash charm was so quick, he doesn't flash it. Chovy gets charmed, that's the end of that. And here's the topside play. Doran has Gore Drinker. Look at how much value he gets here with the stack up. Still not enough, doesn't get the knock up there onto Owner. Owner tanks the aggro so Faker can come through and secure the kill.
Yeah, it was almost a disaster there, but Keria had his stopwatch, so is able to avoid death. Of course, at this stage of the game, the Amumu, not exactly the tankiest, but is still sitting on 0-0-2. Keria, first kill in that bottom side of mid lane, then immediately towards that top side of the map. This is what we knew and loved Keria for so much when he was being touted as the best support in Korea. That has not been something that we've been throwing around so much this season, but it's a great start to this series that he's finding his form once again.
Also puts a little bit more perspective into the Amumu pick, because as a Zeri counter, in quotes, it's been pretty middling, especially when not compared with the Kalista. That combination is one that we've seen used to great efficiency. And while all of this action on top side has been happening, both AD carries have been unbotted, having a good time, farming up to at the very least a 2-item power spike. Doran gets pressured here.
A lot of help coming, though, as they really just want to force this turret down. But Lulu's here, Peanut's nearby. They will not be able to force this on this first wave. Doran deals with it very nicely. What I love about the Keria Amumu is he's basically just playing it like it's a Nautilus pick. It doesn't obviously have the R button, but it's an engaged champ that's going to give him the opportunity if he plays it perfectly. As once again setting up here, Lehens not seen.
Yeah, Doran taking a fair bit of damage, but that can be a little bit misleading. As we know, Gore Drinker plus existing as Aatrox. Certainly a lot of ways to get your health back, as Chovy and Faker just fighting here towards the bottom side. They've just made a new lane for them to battle in. This one's a lot longer though, so Chovy's going to have to be a little bit careful, but he knows that most of T1 are towards that top side as Ruler set up shop at the mid lane. Also has a long lane himself, but he can skate over walls. Zeri's kit just pretty good at avoiding death, but it looks like finally T1 will be able to break down this top outer turret. And there it is. Turret number 2 will be secured here for T1.
And no cross map available this time around for Gen G. What they can do though, and what hopefully they will, is set up. In the minute the Drake spawns and It's a make or break moment here for both teams. As T1, if you win a team fight here decisively, then that provides you with a great opportunity to both slow down what I think is going to be a great win condition for Gen G, and get towards your late game 5v5s. For Gen G, if you do get it, you're able to win a subsequent fight as well, then the map looks very, very different, because you might get mid-tier 1. You're going to be able to do a lot with the power of that Inferno.
They get the scuttle here, but they're not actually able to hold on to Prio, because like you mentioned, there was a lot of time they had to set up, but they couldn't actually get it done while also managing their backs here. Notice that we're going to see a safe teleport here into the mid lane from Chovy. Does not want to actually teleport into the fight itself. Wants to get here as fast as possible and clear that wave, but T1 will actually get control of the bottom side here. They pinged it early. They were going to push into bottom turret. Their back timing is brilliant. They have second Herald. And Gen G, if they want to fight for this, they're going to have to force it through a choke point.
Yeah, and they'll also have to deal with Shirley knocking on their back door here, as she's going to move down towards this bottom side. Doran is going to be able to deal with her. For Gen G, it's going to be a little bit more difficult with the fact that Doran had to show there in that bottom lane. Still, the Drake has just spawned. T1 immediately starting it off with Carrier on a flank angle. Peanut going to move on over, sweeping out Vision where he can. And remember, these Drakes are pretty tanky these days. Chovy going to be setting up some of these Sand Soldiers. Extendo Beam finds no joy as Gen G setting up for their first 5v5 of the game to try and stop T1 from stealing away this Drake. It looks like T1 don't want to overcommit to this one though. But here is the Ornhorn. It is going to be secured by Owner. They take the Drake, but can they win the fight? Doran, he's been exhausted. Peanut flashes. Arctic Assault gets himself out. No one's died in the fight. Finds a huge ultimate, and Carrier will go down. Peanut, the wild growth on top of him, and it is a double kill already for the Zeri. I guess we're Zeri Gaming, ladies and gentlemen, as somehow Chovy got that kill on the bottom side. It's a triple for Ruler as well, and Gen G walk away with the fight.
Not GG quite yet, but we're getting close.
Are we certifying that one, Wolf? How you feeling?
I want to say, yeah, the block from Peanut on the charm was so massive, though. Faker looks for the charm on the Ruler, and he's not able to get it. Peanut blocks it. He doesn't get the charm on the Zeri, and Ruler has free reign. It doesn't matter if you have a Yuumi or not, if you're untouched. Guma!
Oh, no. He does have a spell shield. Doran's not going to be able to find him just yet, so he's going to be okay. But the Baron is going over to Gen G. So, yeah, they lose a Drake, but they'll take a Baron.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, it's bad if you lose this fight and the Drake, but it's one Infernal Drake. Who cares? Getting Zeri fed at this point in the game is so pivotal, and what T1 tries to do here is eliminate the front line, and then you can win the rest of the fights. Carrier zoning away, but Doran stays alive for so long, flashes over. Peanut with a beautiful stopwatch keeps himself alive, and Ruler,
Look at the block for the charm. He just makes sure Ruler can't get caught there. And they knew they had, with the stopwatch, enough time here for Ruler. I thought T1's idea is fantastic, like you said, destroy the front line, but they're not able to do it. And the stakes were high, and Gen G, in longer fights, they now have, well, they've had Leandres for a while, but they have Death Cap on top of it here for Chovy. And in these neutral fights, you have to be so decisive as T1. Otherwise, longer fights, you will always lose.
And it was also such a great fight for T1 for a lot of different reasons as well, because you mentioned the fact that the Leandres, the Death Cap, are now there for Chovy. They weren't there in that last fight. The item advantage was in Faker's favor. If that charm had have landed onto Ruler, then maybe this whole game is just going to be collapsing in favor of T1. Instead, as the Ornhorn comes through yet again, Ruler gets caught in the Ruler position one more time. The Everfrost will be avoided though, but the charm will not. And that is the kill. And as we say it, Ruler gets caught out. Doran now with a Baron buff will be pushing top lane, but this is going to slow down Gen G so much.
Such a nice angle found out by Owner. He's the reason that the play is able to work in the first place. And I was about to give Ruler credit for picking up a QSS. I was like, man, Ruler has learned. He's not going to die in the Ruler spot, but even just thinking of it made it happen as Carrier.
Yeah, possibly in trouble here as Lehen's going to slow him down with that Glitter Lance. There's not a lot of damage with this duo, but they have a lot of CC as the Bandage Toss will guarantee that Carrier dies on his own terms. And Gen G, they will be able to take themselves a pick as well. Currently about 4,000 gold the lead here for Gen G.
And as nice as that pick feels, in the grand scheme of things, Gen G still trade very favorable in turf. They get a topside turret now, they're still able to push here, so it takes some tempo out of this Baron, but by the end of it, still 5k gold lead for Gen G.
Peanut has non-committal CC here over the wall potentially as well. They have to be so careful. Guma has to position really well, or has to be ready with the spell shield, or there is a lot of follow-up CC, or Chovy could just scoop him out if he's out of position for just a second. Doran teleported into that pick onto Keria, so he's already bottom side to set up for a bottom push here, as well as Rulers, as respawned, come up to the top side and is looking for the set. But this is what you were talking about. Owner disables this ward. They have the Ornhorn engaged. There's only so many places Ruler can go. And even with going over the wall here, Owner waits for him there. They have to follow up. And I did not have Ruler dying in the Ruler position in Game 1 on my bingo card for the Summer Finals.
I'm pretty sure it was there. It's just we weren't expecting to fill it in. But it's always
not in
beyond
Game
that.
1, you know?
It's a little antiquated. Yeah, it's the old bingo card from last year.
Yeah.
Also, note, that kill, that shutdown went over to the best person on T1, Guma, who was able to at least maintain some form of item parity as a result. Because the Sivir picking up an early item, especially going for a very necessary, I might add, as that's very unfortunate.
Doran doesn't like timepieces.
Yeah, he's going to buy K anyway.
Stepped on it, walking through the jungle.
He was both giving a shout out to Valdez and also saying, I don't need this to win.
Power move.
It's a confidence play. 100% a confidence play, not a misclick. That's what we're putting it down to. Hopefully, he's going to be able to let us know if he gets interviewed after the series. But for now, we're just going to assume that it's confidence.
Well, Genji have so much control over this spawning Drake right now. It is, I mean, absurd how little angles T1 have. Faker just switched back to teleport, of course, on this Ahri so he can get over here. But he doesn't have any great teleport wards to come to. Look at the vision control here for Genji around the entirety of the pit. They've got mid controlled, and yeah, bottom side's pushing into a turret, but Genji aren't very concerned. And this should be sole point going over to Genji.
And looking at the item breakpoints that we are going to hit for T1 in the next 5 minutes, as this is going to go down, they're not that amazing. Maybe figuring it as a death cap, that's very big. But with Guma going for, again, a very necessary, Lord Dominic's playing the Sejuani, playing its Aatrox, stacking a ton of armor, it does mean that that Infinity Edge spike is delayed. And that is when the Sivir truly becomes unreasonable to play into, especially with frontline. So I don't know. Like, Genji is going to hit Infinity Edge on Ruler, maybe even GA on Doran. And if you have those items going into a soul point fight, you're feeling peachy.
Yeah, and Void Staff as well. Going to be coming through for Chovy in a nick of time as Peanut thinking about whether he can steal this one away. Owner pulls it into the brush, and he will not be able to steal it. Chovy here setting up shop towards the top side as we have bounty gold. Genji with a large advantage right now. Still, anything is possible, and ornaments are starting to come in. That is a lot of gold's worth of stats that T1 will be able to put together. But they have to make sure that they win. And they be counting their blessings with the fact that Owner was able to lock down the smite on that Infernal Drake. His smites have been so good this whole year, and that was a pivotal one.
And what we also saw is that unless you actually kill Ruler, and especially when the Void Staff is finished, and or Chovy, doesn't matter if you kill Doran and Peanut, because they will buy enough time. And once that AE is finished, Ruler needs maybe 3 seconds, and with Guma's performance up until recently, Lord Dominic's is now finished, but will definitely not be having that Infinity Edge ready, so gonna be need to do, I mean, a lot more work.
Genji have these big spikes coming across as this, you know, right now T1 doesn't have that IE for the Sivir, and it's, unfortunately, the other carry they have is an Ahri who's not going to do consistent long-term damage, so you're so reliant on your engage here as T1 if you're going to take this fight itself. You actually need to get a pick instantly and turn that into a 5v4 fight you can manage by getting a second pick very quickly. If you get 2 picks, like you said, very slowly, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Now, T1 do have prio for this.
Yeah, they are going to be able to get into this river, clear out vision where they can. Managing to catch Genji on a reset. They're looking to start this one off. This is definitely aggressive. This feels like a T1 play, but Doran's going to dive into the pit. Finds himself an Infernal Chains, but now Keria looks for the flash. He gets it onto 3. Chovy immediately flashing out. Peanut also going to escape, but Lehens is not so lucky. And Genji, they lose their Lulu, and now T1 with so much control.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. You get those picks instantly, you get them fast, you have the hard engage from Keria on the Samumu, and that's all it takes.
Well, I've seen this one before, gentlemen.
Yeah, I don't know about this.
Again is Doran. Remember, he does have that Gore Drinker. It's still at the ready. He can get all of that health back. It's once again Umbral Dash over the wall. Ruler at full health. He's immediately going to get sniped. Keria has to go golden. Chovy as well. It's the Baron secured for T1. But can they win the fight? Empress Divide's massive. Peanut looking to clean up. And speaking of clean up, Ruler is dashing around the fight. It's a Quadra. As now Owner is trying to deny that Penta and run away. But Ruler, he just has his eyes on these structures.
He's not even going, Ruler isn't going for the Penta. That's not my ruler. What is he doing? Why isn't he chasing? And the key thing here, deny the Baron buff on so many people. Gen G, yeah, you lose that objective. Who cares? You're playing for the soul anyway. And now ruler is monstrously fed. And that first Baron, I loved it because you forced so many cooldowns of Gen G. But then, why go for it again?
Yeah, you go for it again and you don't have the same amount of control, and the carries are still alive. So yeah, you get those first 2 picks, you win the fight, but you don't actually get the objective. You come back in a second time and you leave yourself wide open. And I mean, this is a beautiful play here from Kara. Notice, by the way, Ruler is not here. Peanut is instantly, so it's essentially 2 down here, but Peanut survives. And when you come back for the second exchange, he comes over here. But look at Chovy. His stopwatch timing is beautiful. Goes for the re-engage at no health. Look at this. Faker's forced the stopwatch, and that's the only threat. No one can kill Ruler. That's it.
Yeah, that's the quadra kill for Ruler, and that was, if the other one wasn't certified, this one definitely gets the sticker. Absolutely amazing play from this guy. And look, you might be all spamming Zeri and things like this, but this is Ruler. This is his positioning in these team fights. And I was about to say that it is so difficult for Keria to find these angles, to get these multi-man stuns, but he managed to find it that time around. That was exactly what T1 wanted, and then that re-engage wasn't it.
Well, to me, it's a signal that T1 also felt like they couldn't win that next Drake fight. They're like, we can't give them Infernal Soul. The first play is just a pressure play. If someone gets caught in the back, you force a 5v4 and you get it. Really, really nice. And then they get it, one of the picks. Peanut has to go back as well. So you're effectively fighting with 2 members up, and they're like, let's try. I think that they felt like they were in a very, very unfortunate situation. And that hasn't really changed. 8 seconds. This Infernal Soul on Azir and Zeri.
It's a stopwatch on the Zeri. She's got 4 items. If you weren't going to win it before, you certainly aren't going to win it now. Unfortunately, here is T1. You've got to try, though. Ornn teleporting in.
Yeah, big teleport here from Zeus. He has the smite at the ready as well. They are definitely dedicated to trying to deny this Infernal Soul. Gen G, they don't even really have to worry about it. 2 Infernals, not exactly a huge deal right now.
The Andre's poke, Doran uncontested on the side. T1 can't get control of this. And Chovy's like, I could just push a wave. I don't care. If you guys are going to push bottom, that turret is way less important.
Well, T1's still going to move on over. As Fake, we've got triple smites. We got triple smite on the side of T1 right now. All of these spellbooks have been unsealed, and what's inside these spellbooks is instructions on how to kill dragons. That's all that is written there, but Gen G still able to pressure them out, still able to flex those muscles.
Gen G said they don't have to 50-50. You got 3 smites. I don't care. You guys start at the Drake. We've got positional advantage here.
Can they actually win the fight before things happen, though? As Ruler stepping forward, not exactly what you want. That is not the ultimate carry he was looking for either. As the Ornhorn comes in, doesn't find Ruler. As Doran's diving on in. Still gonna have to get himself out of position once more. And Gen G just gonna move back towards this Drake. As T1, they dive on forward. It resets and it's secured by Peanut. He only had 1 smite, but it's 1 smite to rule them all. As Gen G, they will get the Infernal Soul. And this game's looking so difficult for T1.
3-1. Peanut likes those arts. He doesn't care. And thanks to a great initial fight and setup from Gen G, utilizing their amazing item advantages, they're able to keep T1 off of the objective, even with a couple of people coming over to try and steal it. It's not enough.
I mean, the truth is, if you watch the positioning here that Gen G sets up, the Ornhorn's not great. There's not great turn here. And it doesn't matter if you have all those smites, if you can't get into range to use them. As both Faker and Owner try to dive in and set up for this, they're not able to close the gap. There's no fight without the rest of the team there. And Gen G just played it so slow, so slave. Say, play around Extendo Beam, play around that Leandri's damage that Chovy has on this Azir. T1 cannot walk into you unless they get a single blow-up target. That's why this pick comp can be strong. Just wasn't in this circumstance.
Well, T1 now have a Sivir that has a Kraken Slayer that's upgraded, as well as the Infinity Edge now completed. So if Gen G mess up a fight, then they will all die. That is just definitely a thing that's going to happen. This game is still definitely winnable for T1. However, with this Infernal Soul, I mean, the Zeri moments that we are going to be potentially experiencing in the future are definitely going to be difficult to watch if you're a T1 fan.
That's the problem. We've also reached a point where this is Chovy with Death Cap and an Infernal Soul. Just killing Ruler isn't enough anymore. He's been, outside of that one pick, very slippery in his teamfight positioning. The rest of the team has been playing for this player the entire split. The only team that came even close to rivaling how well they were playing around their bot laner was Sandbox, who, by the way, Gen G smashed when they faced off.
Yeah, I mean,
They smashed them in one game, okay?
I'm not over it, Atlas. I don't want to go back to that.
Chovy's stopwatch play on that Baron fight was really what won it for them, and then now he's soon to buy another Zonias. He doesn't have it here for this one as it spawns in 30, but they have total control of this choke point. They have great wave clear, and if T1 can't get in, can't find a flank angle with Owner here potentially on this Wukong, then Zeri will just have unlimited moments, and they see Owner here. They go over and collapse around him, trying to spot him. He doesn't have a flank angle anymore, and now he's actually just vulnerable.
He definitely is. Lehen's going to be checking these brushes. Ruler finds Owner, and look at the damage as Chovy denies the Warrior Trickster by just Emperor's dividing him in the face.
You have to try to find an angle as the Wukong. You're the one person who can maybe find a flank and set up for that knockup, but you get seen, you die, and now you don't have a smite for this fight. Like, it's not a bad move here from Owner, but he gets caught with his hand in the cookie jar here, and now there's no jungler for T1.
Look at Doran.
Rotating over. Yeah, Doran's flank angle is absolutely fantastic. Ruler just wanting to keep himself safe. But remember, he has GA, he has Mercurial Scimitar, and there is the ult out of Peanut. They're looking for the engage. They don't want to go for any 50-50s as their health bar just melts. He does so much damage. There's the triple kill already. And Gumayusi is going to get flashed on. He does go down to his GA, does Ruler, but Gumayusi, he's running for the hills. And this game, I think, now belongs to Gen G.
Gonna have to agree with you on that one, Atlas. Guma running for his life here, has a ton of damage, but GA for Doran.
That's a really nice spell shield.
They can push the base.
Yeah. Doran, he has a GA as well. Like, even if he dies, he doesn't care. All he needs to do is make sure Sivir doesn't make it back.
Yeah, well, he's going to try and do so, as there we go. Infernal Chains do connect. Gumayusi goes golden as the Death Dance was doing a fair bit of work, but he does go down to his GA. Gumayushi's just staying here, though, remember? As we move back towards the Baron on Gen G's side, Doran's still just World Ender, and he's trying to stop Gumayusi from doing anything that he wants. There it is, gives him the old thumbs up as well. And there's the Baron at the same time. Gen G all but won this game.
And it says a lot about the desperate state of that game. The flank that Owner went for, I agree with you, Wolf. You got to try something at this point. If you don't get that backline, it's not happening. Zeus finds a heroic 3-man knock-up air, does as much as he can, but it doesn't matter anymore. Foreman, excuse me.
It was
better,
so well played.
There's no damage. Doesn't matter.
And that's the problem.
Thing.
It's also a problem with Ahri, too. You know, she sets up for flanks really well. She sets up for picks really well. But on this champion, he can't carry. You can't fight the longer fight here against the Fed Zeri's full build, against the Fed Azir.
Well, Owner now running away as they're looking to try and defend this inner turret towards the bottom side. Inhibitor down in the mid lane already. 10,000 gold, the lead for Gen G. As Ruler is now 12-1-1. I believe that's 2 quadra kills so far this game.
Yeah, he came close to the, no, I think it was a triple in the end, and he came close to an unofficial penta because of the Chovy scoop, right?
Yeah.
So he killed Wukong, but then Doran
so
stole
he
his
did kill
kill.
all 5 of them, basically. All right, not too bad. As T1, this is a very difficult defense. However, they do have wave clear. They have Sivir, synonymous with that word, absolutely. As now Doran looking for some opportunities, but Umbral Dash will get him over that wall just fine.
I mean, look at the wave clear they have. They could just set up here, and T1 eventually will get worn down. Flank angle for Owner, not great. They have ward coverage here. There's no vision.
Yeah, they do. The war of attrition just going to be won here by Gen G. They'll take this inhibitor. Elder Drake going to be spawning in 30 seconds time, but Gen G still have so much control of this base. They're still looking to push. Want to deny T1 any sort of access. Oh my god, that is 50% of Gumayushi's health with 1 extendo beam. Zeri, we talk about Zeri's being online and things like this. This is like out of control from Ruler this point in the game. And still has shoes though.
And even with, like, there's so much CC that could potentially lock him down, but it can't get to him. They can't actually connect it, so it doesn't matter.
There's so much peel. There's so much front line between Doran, between Peanut, and even Chovy with his ultimate. I don't think you're getting to that Elder. They got to try, but what can you do?
It's a late Ornhorn. Zeus going to use it for disengage now. Gen G just avoid it. And now with Exodia complete, Gen G are bearing down on the base once again. Teleport to come forward as Chovy just bought a bunch more items. And this is all over, but the Nexus is what it feels like at this point in time. T1 are going to need something absolutely heroic to make this one work. The flash from Faker is not going to be enough, as Chovy has one of those as well. Uses it in order to get himself out of the way. Once again, these minions are getting obliterated.
Yeah, 15 seconds on Baron. If they can defend this, maybe there's a world.
Maybe. But there's still an Elder Drake here, remember, as Wild Growth come through for the chain CC. But Peanut, he's also going to get CC'd up. These Nexus turrets, they just don't last, though. As Ruler throws in the ultimate, he's doing so much damage already. Emperor's Device going to deny any sort of re-engage. The knock-up is okay, but it's another double kill. Make it a triple, make it a quadra, and Gumayushi wants to do everything to deny this pentakill, but it will not happen, at least for now, because the Nexus is going to fall. Gen G, they will take game one in this best of 5.